So as we saw, one more example of using and utilizing the variants of lookups in order to search from multiple tables or from multiple table arrays over here. So we were able to successfully extract the data, search for data and give a result set in the outcome. Now let's try to see that when does a VLOOKUP can ideally fail, and how does something different apart from VLOOKUP can come into consideration. So if I see another sheet which I have, you can see that I have full name of the employee, I have hiring date of the employee, I have employee ID, I have department names, I have designations, I have annual salary of the employee. So these are the details which are provided to me, and I want to search for certain of them. Let's say I have certain of the employee IDs for whom I want to search for the data. So here you can see that employee ID is there, department is there, designation is there, annual salary, full name and hire date is there. So first let's understand what's a lookup value, what's the table array, and let's see, is it fruitful in terms of using VLOOKUP or not, or the criterias or the points to remember or the rules which were required for a VLOOKUP to satisfy, are they available over here or not. So this ID over here for which I want to search the data for, that's my lookup value. So here this employee ID as a column is acting as a lookup value because all the employee IDs which are provided over here I want to look for, I want to search for. So this is a lookup value. What's a table array? Now table array over here would be the entire table from where I'll gather the information. So you can see that this is an entire table from where I would gather the information for the search. Now according to the criteria of VLOOKUP, obviously we are using a VLOOKUP. Why? Because the alignment of data over here is what? The alignment of data is a vertical table. I can try with the normal lookup as well, but here the alignment of data is vertically aligned, so I'm using a VLOOKUP for the same. Now if I want to go with the rules of VLOOKUP, the very first rule, which was the lookup value. What's the lookup value for me? The employee ID. The lookup value must be the first column of the lookup table or the table array, which means employee ID would be the first column of the table search. Is it the first column of the table search? I don't think so it is, because I have full name, I have hire date, and then I have employee ID. So ideally the first column of the lookup table condition or the criteria is not being satisfied, but I could select my data from here. So eventually it makes it as the first column. So if I consider table array till here, yes, it could make the employee ID as the first column of my lookup table or the table array. So this condition or this criteria seems to be sorted. Now what's the next condition? The values must be sorted in ascending order if you are doing an approx match. But obviously I'm not trying to do any approx match over here. I would definitely try to go and find out the approx exact match. Why exact match? Because for that exact found employee ID, I want to gather the details of the employee. So I'll preferably not select approx match over here. So it's fine if the data is not sorted in an ascending order, but it's a preferred way because the search will become way more easier if the data is sorted in ascending order. So it seems to be data into my table array with respect to employee IDs is being sorted into an ascending order for me. Now as I said that the lookup value or the lookup search, I want to make it exact. Why exact and why not approximate? Because I want to exactly find out the details of the employee for that particular employee ID. I don't want a less than or approximate match or a nearby match which needs to be found if the employee ID is not available for me. So I would do a VLOOKUP. Let's try to do a VLOOKUP over here. So I'll do VLOOKUP. What's the lookup value for me? This is a lookup value for me. What's the table array for me? So if I consider a table array, I am not considering a table from here. Why? Because as per the criteria, it has asked that the lookup value must be in the first column of the table array, or it should be the leftmost column of the table array, because the search happens from the left hand side or from the leftmost column. So I'll do Control Shift down arrow key, Control Shift right, and this table array is being selected. I will fix this table. Why? Because when I drag this formula down, obviously the selected range of cells can be dragged further. Why? Because it's a relative referencing which has happened. So F4, where I'm trying to do an absolute referencing. Why absolute? Because I don't want the position of the table to be changing. It needs to be fixed at that particular position. So column index number, what do I want to find? I want to find out department. So what's the column index number of department? If you can see, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So I am not calculating or not counting from full name, because the table array which I have selected is from the employee ID. So obviously employee ID needs to be the first column of the lookup table or the table array. So employee ID has a position of column index as 1. So department eventually will have 2, designation will have 3, and annual salary will have 4. So here if I want to gather it for department, I'll write 2. So I've written 2, that's the column index position is 2. And what's the range lookup? What type of looking or search I do require over here? As I discussed earlier, we will be looking for a data which is an exact match. So I'll do this, and when I close it, you could see it's showing me sales. Let's try to see that it's gathering correctly or not. S1004, and yes, it's a sales department. Now if I drag it further, the departments are given. 1005 is information technology, 006 is operations, and 007 is customer service, and similarly it has extracted me details like 117 is a customer service data. So the departments have been successfully gathered over here. Similarly, I'll do for what? I'll do for designation. So what I'll do for designation, I'll do VLOOKUP. I know that I don't need to write the formula again and again. I can use a match operation over here. So let's try to do a match operation over here in order to search. So this is a VLOOKUP. Now you know what's match. Match will find out the matching value. Instead of me going and writing the column index number, match will itself match the element in the selected cells and give me the index position for the same. So that's the lookup value. What's the table array? The table array still will be from employee ID. So I'll do this, Control Shift down and then Control Shift right. This is being selected. And let me fix it by F4, and here column index number. So instead of me going and counting what is the index position for designation, let me use something called as match. Now you must be knowing what is the purpose of match. Match will take an value, it will search in the selected cells, and at what position the value occurs will throw out the position for me. So I will be using something called as match. Matching what? Matching the value. Value is what? Designation. I want to match. From where I want to match? From the column names, from the employee ID till here. And what kind of match do you think so I require? I require an exact match. So I'll pass in the value as 0, and that's it. But here I need to fix this range of cells, because if I drag the values further, I don't want this position to be changing. So if I do F4 and I do F4, you could see from, if I select this, just a second, if I select this, employee ID, department, designation and annual salary, that's being fixed. So when I move further, when I drag the value further, obviously From employee ID, it is going in department, then designation, then annual salary. So when I am finding a match for designation, now designation column in this range of list has an index position of what? 3. So let's try to see if it is throwing a 3 value as me, and you could see that it's throwing me 3. If it is not showing you as such, you can press function F9. What is the outcome of this? You can get that it's 3. If I do Control Z, the function occurs again. So that's where with the help of match I have gathered the index position. Now what do I require? Do I require an exact match or approx match? Obviously I require an exact match over here, so I require this, and that's it. So you can see it's showing me the designation is a sales representative. So it's belonging from sales department, and the designation of that particular employee is what? Is sales representative. So this being correct. Now let's try to copy this value downwards. Now what's happening over here is when I have used this designation, why the error occurs is this. You can see matching. It is trying to match sales representative in this match condition, and that's not found. So the column index number is an error. You can see this is an error, is not applicable. Why? Because of this M4 is taking sales representative. So one thing which is very important is the referencing. You need to refer the cells very appropriately. So if I do enter, and here where the formula has been written, this what I will do, that in the third column, in the third row, I need it to be fixed. Column wise, okay. If you go from M to N, N to O, O to P, it's still fine. But the names of the columns are in the third row. So be fixed at the third row. So I do F4. And you can see now it is considering what? Designation. So every time I drag the value further, it's going to take designation. Now it's showing me correctly. Why? Because when I go over here, you can see it's still in the designation part. When I go in this, the value is still in the designation part. It's not coming to sales representative or the IT specialist. So relative referencing is not a part over here. So we can see. Now if I try to drag this formula further, it's going to show me any, not applicable. Do you think so that annual salary is not available for this particular employee? It is. That's 48,000. So why it is not shown? Again, a use of referencing is required or was required over here. So if you can see, when I select this, the lookup value over here has been changed because I didn't apply any referencing. I need to search into my employee ID column itself. So when I drag it further, I don't want the column to be changing. I wanted or I required the rows to be shifting downwards. So that's when the referencing failed for me. So what I will do in this particular part, this column needs to be fixed. Means whatever I do, it should be in the K column itself. It should not shift from K to L, L to M, M to N, or O, and similarly. So I'll apply F4 for the column, and you can see that's the value which is being fixed. And I search and I drag it. You could see 48,000, which was actually the salary of that particular employee, has been extracted. So similarly, I'll see for the rest of them that yes, the salaries are being extracted. So a VLOOKUP is working fine, but why did I mention that? Let's see what errors VLOOKUP can encounter or VLOOKUP can show to us. Another thing is full name. Now when I select this table, do you think so anywhere in this selected table array full name as a value is available to me? I don't think so. So when I drag this formula which I have written, or the function which I have written over here, it's obviously going to show me NA. Why? Because full name as a column is ideally not possibly available to me. Because as I said that in the VLOOKUP the search happens from left to right. So you can do a search from leftmost column and return the result set of the rightmost columns which are there. So the search happens from left to right. But here I don't want this search to happen from left to right. Why? Because there are certain columns before the employee ID. For them also this information needs to be fetched. So that's not being fetched over here. So let me remove it and let me implement a VLOOKUP separately for this. So if I use a VLOOKUP, I have a lookup value, that's this. I have a table array, but here the table array I am selecting is from this. Control shift down to not the entire table, but only till what? Till the employees. That's what I am trying to select over here. But according to the rules of VLOOKUP or the important criteria of VLOOKUP, the lookup value column, that's my employee ID, is not the first column of the table array or the lookup table where the search is being found. So ideally it's not going to return anything for me. Now column index number. Do I know the column index number or the position of the columns? Obviously, if I consider employee ID as 1, so hiring date would be 0 and full name would be -1. So let's give -1 over here in the column index position. And what's the match which I want to find? An exact match. And when I do this, it's still an error. Why? Because -1 as a column index position is not there. It starts from left to right. It is not going from right to left. So that's a problem which is occurring over here. So I cannot use a VLOOKUP when the search value or the search element is there not at the beginning or not at the leftmost column. It's there somewhere in the center of the search. That's giving a problem for me. Why? Because it's there at the center. I could not search the data from left to right because there are columns which are not at that particular position. So that's causing an error for us. And I could also not use any approach with respect to VLOOKUP. Yeah, I can use a lookup. I could use a lookup. That's a lookup value. Lookup vector. What's the lookup vector? Where I am looking for the data? Here. And let me fix it. F4. That in this particular vector. Result vector. What do I want of them? I want the name. Control shift down. And I do F4 and the result vector is being found. And you could see 101 S1004, that's Emily Brown. So the name has been extracted. But here the VLOOKUP was not so sufficient for me to extract the data. Now similarly, if I want to do hiring date, obviously I need to use another times a lookup. VLOOKUP would also not work over here. So if I do VLOOKUP, lookup value is this, table array. Now you know that table array is what this, control shift down, shift and arrow key. So I've selected this and if I do F4, that's fixed. Now hiring date position. What is the position of hiring date? Obviously it's 0 if I consider employee ID as a first column. So it's 0. But here it's not 0, it's 2. So I'll consider if employee ID is 1, so hiring date is up before that, so it's 0 and full name is -1. So I've considered it, and when I do a match, that's an exact match. and you could see that it's still an NA. Why? Because in backward compatibility, or let's say the employee ID is not at the first column and still I'm trying to search for data, it's not ideally possible for me. So that's an error which occurs. So if I use a lookup in general, I could use a lookup. What's a lookup value for me? This lookup vector from where I'm looking for this data, control shift down, and let me fix it because I don't want this cell references to be changing when I relatively change the position of the formula. Now a result vector, what's the result which I require? I require the hiring date. Same, I'm referring this, I'm absolutely referencing this, and when I do this, you could see that it's giving me a Unicode value. Here we can go and do a short date for all of them, and then the data is being extracted. So let's see that it's correct or not. 3/25/2023, yes, it's correct. So the data has been extracted, but we were not using one function at a time. We used lookups, VLOOKUPs as well. I was not able to do everything at one go because the lookup value column was not possibly available in the first position of the lookup table. So that's the problem which encounter. We tried to solve it by using VLOOKUPs as well as a lookup in general, but every time I have to write a new formula. Every time I have to change the references, functions in order to gather the information for me. So what I could possibly do, I could possibly go with this approach if I want this method to be followed further, or I could use something else known as index as well as match. Let me first make you understand what is index, what is match, and how both of them would help us to do the task. Now let me clear it out everything. So clear. Now I don't know the position of S1004. So here in this particular cell, what's the position of S104? This is this 1, 2, 3 and 4. So fourth position, index position. Index position is the position of the value in the range of cells. So here I can see S1004, the position is for 4. So if I want to gather the department, I will write 4 as a position. So at fourth position, whatever is the value, give an extract to me. So here if I do equals to and I use index, now you can see returns a value. It will not give a number like match was giving me. Match was giving me a position of the value when it is being matched in the range of cells. Index will return a value or reference of cells at the intersection of particular row and a given column, which means I will pass a row number, I will pass a column number, and it will give me the value. So I am writing index. You can see there are two options. There is array, there is row number, there is column number, then there is something called as reference, then you have row number, column number, and so on. So let's say I want to refer salaries, or let's say not salaries in general, I want to refer the departments. I'll do control shift and down, and row number. What's the row number which I want for the fourth row? What's the department for the fourth one? It's sales. Now what do I want to refer? Let's say I want index. It should refer the salary. I've considered this at fifth position. What's the salary at fifth position? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. It's 60,000. Let's see, is it giving me 60,000 or not? Yes, it is. So a value at a particular index is being fetched for us. Now let's try to understand what is let's say I give index, and instead of selecting one particular reference cell, let me select multiple. So I've selected till here. So I've selected till here, this is being selected. So this is a reference cell, and let me fix it. Let me fix it by F4, and you could see that I have fixed it. Now row number and column number. I want to find out second row. Second row means in this selected table, the selected table is from departments to salary. First row is this, second row is this. So second row is marketing. And I want the column to also be second. Now what's the second row? Second row is this, and what's the second column? First column and second column. That's the designation. So here the answer where it is intersecting is marketing specialist. Let's see that it's going to give us that or not. So what it actually did, that when I selected this range of cells, it selected this range of cells, it went into the second row. So this is a table array from where I am extracting the data with the help of positions, the index positions which I know. So I've selected this, I will long press Control. Where I went to the second column, second row which was there, and after going to second row, I went to the second column which was there. And where did it intersect? It intersected into the marketing specialist over here. So that's why it is giving me marketing specialist over here. Now this is how it is being extracted. Let's try to find out the position of each one of the IDs which are available to me. So what's the position of S1004? I don't know. What's the position of S1005? I don't know. So in order to find the positions, what we do? We use match. In order to find out value from the position, we do index. So one thing to remember over here, if you are using index as a function, if you are using index as a function, what it does, that it extracts value. It extracts what? Values. Values from what? Values on the basis of what? On the basis of index position. On the basis of position. Now what kind of position? The row number, the column number, and so on. If you want second row value, it will return the second row value in the reference cell. If you want second column value, it will return the second column value in the reference cell. So index will extract the value. But when I talk upon match as a function, what does match will help me to do? Match will help me to extract the position of the matching element. What is a position? Let's say it extracts what? It extracts position of the value. That's what it do. So what's the position of the value? Let's say I write S1004. In the 10 cell, it's at the 4th position. So S1004 in the range of cells is lying at what position? So that position would be matched and returned to me with the help of match, and index will take that position and return the value which is being found. So here we have something called as index, which returns value by the position. Here we have something else called as match, which returns position with the help of value. So now we understood what's the use of match and index. Let's try to see how does they work. So if I want to find out the position of S1004 in the table array, I don't know the position. I know the value, that is S1004, it's lying in the table array. So if I want to gather the position of it, obviously I will use something called as match. Because what does match do? Match extracts the position of the value. So here I will use something called as match. Now you can see match returns the relative position, which means the position of an item in an array, which means a value in the range of cells that matches a specified value, the value which I have passed, in the specific order, in the order in which the reference cell it occurs. So here I take this match. What's the lookup value that I want to match? S1004. What's the lookup array? Where I want to look for this value? Over here. Let me fix it, because when it changes it needs to be there at that particular position. So I have fixed it with F4, and you can see that it has been fixed. Now do I want an exact match, approx match, and so on? So finds the largest value that is less than or equals to the lookup value, which means if the exact value is not found, it will find out the less than value which is there. So array must be placed in ascending order for this. So if the array is placed in ascending order, it will find out the less than value if the exact value is not found. 0, what does it do? It finds the exact value at that particular position, exact value or exact position of that particular value. Now after that we have something called as greater than, that's the smallest value which would be there. So it will find out greater than or equals to the lookup value which we have got or gathered. So I require an exact match. So I will pass in what? 0 over here. And if I do, what's the position of S1004 in the range of cells? It's 4. And when I drag it further for the rest of the cells, what's the position of them? S1004 is at 4th position. Let's cross verify. So in the range of cell, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, and it's 4, correct? S1005 is at 5th position, 6th position, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we have S1017, which is obviously below, and what's the position of it? It's a 17th position in the range of cells, and you could see what it has thrown us in the outcome, 17th position. So here match, what does match help me to do? Match helped me to find out what? Find out the positions of the value in the range of cells. So match will return the relative position of a value when it is being matched in the range of cells. It depends, you want to do exact, it depends, you want to do approx. Now similarly, I will find out the position of each and every column which is ideally available to us. What is the position of employee ID in the range of cells? What is the position of department, designation, and so on? So I'll use match again. So what I'm doing, I'm using a match which is finding a relative position. What's the lookup value? The lookup value is this. I've written the employee ID which is there. And where I'm looking for in the column headers. So I'm looking in the column headers. Let me fix it, because I don't want the reference cells to change when I drag further or when I move further. So I fixed it. Obviously I need an exact match over here as well, which I write it as 0, and that's it. So what is the position of employee ID? It's 3. What will be the position of departments over there? It would be 4. What will be the position of designation? It's 5, 6. What's the position of full name as a column? It's 1. Hiring date as 2. So I have gathered the position of each one of them. Now if I want to find out the department of this particular employee, what I am going to do is I want to write equals to, and I will write what? Index. Now when I write this index, there are two things which I can write. Array means the entire table array I can select, or a reference cell. What is a reference cell? That one particular range of cells would be selected, but I will select an entire array, and let's see. So Control Shift down and Control Shift right. So entire array has been selected, and let me fix, because when I move further, obviously relative referencing would work over here. I don't want the table to move further, I want this table element to be fixed. So I have fixed it. Now you can see it's asking for row number. What is the row number of the employee ID? I will write 4, that's 4th row. And what is the column number of this? That's also what, 4. When I do this, it is extracting me sales. How? Let's say it is going into the table, and what it is trying to do when it is going into the table, it's going into, this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row, and this is the 4th row. So this entire row is being selected. So 4th row, what is the value of column? The 4th column. So this is the first column, this is second, this is third, and this is 4th. So if you see the 4th value, this and this, it is intersecting over here, and that's being extracted. So that's why it is extracting me sales for the same. So this is how we could work, and we could give the value, we could search the value with the help of index and match. Now index and match does not have a criteria as such that you have to have the employee ID or the lookup value in the first column of the lookup table. There is no such criteria because it's not doing a data search from left to right. Anywhere the data is found, it is going to give me the outcome. So let's try to use index and match together. So how it would be useful? Let me write index. What's an array? Where I will gather the data from here. So Control Shift down and Control Shift right. That's where the array which I would like to search for data, and I do function and F4. So I fix the data over here. Now row number. What's the row number? I know that I have extracted 4, 5, 6, 7. But if the value change, it should show me the row number which is particularly, and I don't want to manually insert it. So I will use an approach of match. You must be knowing now. We understood what's match. Match will find out the index position of the matching element in the ranges of cells. That where does it lie? So I will use something called as match for the row number and match. What I want to match, that's a lookup value, and I will fix the k column because obviously I would be dragging this formula right hand side, left hand side, and I don't want it to be shifting from k column. Yeah, row wise it could shift, which means it could go from 4 to 5th, 5th to 6th, 6th to 7th, but I don't want it to change from k to L, L to M, and so on. So I will fix it where I have fixed the column. So it's a mixed referencing where one part of the cell is fixed, it's absolute, and one part of the cell is relatively changing. What's the lookup array? Where do I want to look up this? Obviously into this, and I'll fix this again because I don't want this to relatively change either. And what's the value which I want to find? I obviously need to find an exact match. So I have written, so when I write this, what's the value which is going to throw by it? It's going to throw me 4 because S1004 in the range of cells, if I find it exactly, is at the 4th position. So I did it for rows. Similarly, I'll do for what? I'll do for columns. So match. What's the lookup value? This. Now obviously when I'm changing downwards, I don't want it to shift from 3rd column to 4th, from 3rd row to 4th row, or from 4th row to 5th row. So what I could do is I could fix the row, not the columns, because from K to L, L to M, M to N, it's fine, it should move. So I'll fix, but not absolutely. It will be a mixed reference where the row is fixed and the column seems to be moving. What's the lookup array? Where I want to find out this name matching in the column headers. So I've selected the column headers, and again I'll do a referencing. Why? Because I don't want this part to be shifting when I relatively change the formula or when I drag the formula further. For this also I require an exact match, so I'll write 0, and that's it. So this part is what? This part is an array, means the entire table from where I want to gather the data is being selected. This part is what? This part is my column number, my row number, where the row of the element is being extracted. And this part is what? This part is nothing but my column index position, that's the column number which I want to find. So where it intersects at a particular row number and a column number, the value would be extracted for the same. And let's try to see how does it works. You could see that it is giving me sales because I have selected this. I don't need to select this over here. I need to select this. Okay, just a second. So I need to select what? The department name, because I selected employee, that's the reason why. Let me give a referencing again where I want to refer this. F4. Yeah. And let me give a referencing again. Now instead of selecting employee ID, I must have selected the department. So here, and I do this, and you could see the sales has been extracted over here, and the rest of them are extracted. And when I drag it further, the names and everything is extracted by the use of simply one formula. I didn't use VLOOKUP over here. I didn't change the formula again and again. I wrote it once, and that was ideally more than enough for me to get the data or to gather the data at once. Where the lookup value was not there at the first column of the lookup table, still I was able to gather the data. So this is how index and match works. So there are certain instances where you can use or show the use case of index and match. So this was all about how index was there, how match is there, and how both of them could be together used in order to get the data or extract the data in the outcome. So we saw VLOOKUP, we saw general lookup in order to solve this problem. We also saw index and match. There is one question which I get very often, that what do you think so? When we should use index match and when we should use a lookup or a VLOOKUP in general. First of all, when I would like to explain that for you. So, first of all, let me explain you that when do we use a VLOOKUP or a general lookup, and when do we use an index and match as an approach. So imagine when your Excel version is like any version, it could be 19, 16 and so on, and when you want to search for data, now this data search, when it is happening from left to right, what is the meaning of left to right? Which means the leftmost column will be looked, would be searched, and based on the leftmost column, the rightmost column will act as a result vector or a result set. So if you want to search the data from left to right, where the lookup value or the search value is not somewhere in between the table, it's there at the very beginning column, or it's the first column as per the rules which we have. We can simply use VLOOKUP, also your HLOOKUP if it's there from the first row. So we can simply use VLOOKUP. We can also use normal lookup for the same. But you know that for normal lookup you have to change the formulas again and again, references again and again if you want multiple result vectors to be shown. But when you want to search for data, particularly from left to right, we preferably use a VLOOKUP over there. Now, when the data search does not happen from left to right, You want to go from right to left, or the lookup value column is not there at the first column of the lookup table. That might be the condition which we saw in this example, that it was there. So when I need to search for the same, I will use something called as index and match together in order to search for data and extract the data from the table, so that the search becomes very easy. So this was a simple use case of how does a VLOOKUP works, how does a VLOOKUP can show limitations which we have, and how does an index and match could help me in order to search for the data. So this was all about VLOOKUPs. How does they work, how does index and match will overcome the problems which your VLOOKUP might encounter the same. So I hope it's understandable.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel and comment on the concept you want to learn next.